When you look back over your life, some of the things you faced at the time, you didn't think you could make it through. The obstacle was so large. The breakup hurt you so badly. The medical report was so negative. You didn't see a way, but God turned it around. He gave you strength when you didn't think you could go on. He brought the right person when you thought you'd always be lonely. He promoted you, gave you that good break. Things fell into place. Now you're further along than you ever imagined. It wasn't a lucky break. It wasn't a coincidence. It was the hand of God. You should have been stuck, addicted, broke, depressed, lonely, but God made a way when you didn't see a way. You can say like me, I didn't get here by myself. It wasn't just my good luck, my hard work, my talent. It was the favor of God. He made things happen that I could never make happen on my own. But none of us like difficulties. If we had a choice, we wouldn't go through them. But those challenges not only prepared you for your future, but now you have a history with God. When you're in a tough time, you don't see a way out. Instead of being discouraged, negative, you can go back and remember how God turned your health around. Remember how He gave you that baby when the specialist said you couldn't have a child. Remember how He brought you out of that trouble that you got yourself in. When you remember how God has protected you, promoted you, healed you, restored you, faith will rise in your heart. Instead of thinking, I'll never get out of this problem, you'll know God did it for me once, He'll do it for me again. He made a way in the past, I know He's going to make a way in the future. Don't complain about the problem. It's not random. You're going to need that victory in the future. God is taking you from glory to glory. When you come through this challenge, that victory will be the fuel you use that gets you to the next level of glory. You thought you were stuck, but God opened a door, caused somebody to be good to you. Or you lost a loved one. You didn't think you'd ever be happy again, but God lifted you out of that pit. He turned your mourning into dancing. When you face tough times, your dream looks impossible. Every voice says it's never going to happen. Just remember. Go back and replay your victories. Relive the times God made a way. Remember how He put you at the right place and you met that person and fell in love. Remember how He spared your life from that accident. Remember how the medical report said you shouldn't be here, but here you are alive, strong and healthy. If you're going to overcome those obstacles, you're going to reach your highest potential, you have to learn to just remember. When you're constantly thinking about God's goodness, how He's protected you, vindicated you, promoted you, not only will faith rise in your heart, but it's that attitude of expectancy that allows God to do great things. On a regular basis, we should go back over the major victories in our life. Remember the day your children were born. That was a great miracle. Remember how God gave you that job, how He protected you, how you met the right person. Develop this habit of remembering what God has done. I remember in my early 20s, walking into a jewelry store to buy a battery for my watch, minding my own business, and out walked the most beautiful girl I'd ever seen. It was Victoria. We ended up dating for a year and a half, and she couldn't keep her hands off of me, so we got married. At least that's the way I remember it, but I recognize that wasn't a coincidence. That wasn't a lucky break. That was God directing my steps, putting me at the right place at the right time. When I think about that, it reminds me how God is in control of my life. If He was directing my steps back then, I know He's directing my steps right now. The Apostle Paul talks about in the Scripture the mercies of God. Not singular, but plural. And every one of us has experienced some of these mercies. Walking into the jewelry store that day, that was one of the mercies of God. When I was first married, I was driving on the freeway during a big rainstorm. I lost control of my car and started spinning around and around, crossing the different lanes of the freeway. At one point I looked up and this 18-wheeler was coming right at me. I was going the wrong direction. We were so close, I felt like I could touch his front grill. And I thought, boy, that's it. I'm done. All I could say was Jesus. When you're in trouble, you don't have to pray long. Some of you would have said something else, but we won't talk about that. Somehow, that big truck missed me. The driver pulled over. He came up to my window. His eyes were this big. He said, I can't believe I didn't run over you. But at the last second, a big gust of wind blew my truck into the other lane. He said it was the wind. I know it was the mercies of God. When our son Jonathan was a little boy, less than a year old, we were on a boat with some friends, and he was in the baby carrier, and we'd set it on the bench there in the boat. And as we were traveling along, something whispered to Victoria, go hold on to your son. She walked over and held on to the baby carrier. About 30 seconds later, the boat hit a huge wave. Everything that wasn't tied down went flying overboard. He too would have been thrown into the water if not for the mercies of God. Many of you, you can say like me, you wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for God's mercy. Some of the things you've done, the crowd you used to run with, the drugs, the alcohol, that should have taken you out. But God showed you some of His mercies, not once, but again and again. Maybe you shouldn't have that position that you're in. You weren't the most qualified, but the mercies of God gave it to you. Or perhaps that sickness said it was going to be the end, but the mercies of God said, this is not your time. When you recognize what God has done, you don't take for granted that all through your life, it's been His hand getting you to where you are. Then it's easy to honor God. It's easy to be grateful. It's easy to serve, to give, to help others. You realize where you are in life is because of the mercies of God. You know you're driving a mercy car. You're living in a mercy house. You're working at a mercy job. You didn't just marry over your head, you married mercy. Maybe you should have had a nervous breakdown, but mercy showed up. You should be depressed, but mercy turned you around. You could be in prison, but mercy kept you out. Or you tried to take your life, mercy kept you alive. Mercy gave you that baby. Mercy gave you that idea. Mercy opened that door. Don't take it for granted. Keep it on the forefront of your mind. You're not just lucky. You don't just keep beating the odds. It's the mercies of God. In fact, the reason you're still here, the reason that truck couldn't run over you, the reason those drugs couldn't kill you, the reason the sickness couldn't take you out is because God has a destiny for you to fulfill. He has an assignment for you to accomplish. His mercies are never going to give up on you. His calling is irrevocable. He chose you before you could choose Him. You might as well recognize you're a marked man, a marked woman. The Creator of the universe has His hand on your life. Sometimes you need to just thank God that you're still here. Cancer couldn't finish you off. Depression couldn't finish you off. That divorce, the legal problem, the bankruptcy couldn't finish you off. The person talking about you, the haters, the critics, the naysayers, they tried to push you down, make you look bad. They did their best, but their best was not enough. You're still standing. You're still strong. You still got a smile. They couldn't finish you off. You got knocked down, but you got back up again. You had a setback, a breakup, but you're still in the game. You went through a loss, but you didn't get bitter. You kept moving forward. That setback could not finish you off.